When St. Ignatius of Loyola was sick in the hospital, recovering from his injuries in battle, he would like to fantasize. He'd like to daydream. And he would often daydream about the life of Christ and the life of the saints. But he would also daydream about living in, being a knight in the royal court with all the kings and the politicians and all the noble ladies as well. And he began to notice that when he reflected on the life of Christ and the life of the saints, he felt true peace. He felt peace. And although the life, thinking about the court life, it may have been exciting for him when he first thought about it with the romance, the intrigue, but he noticed it didn't give him a lasting peace. It didn't give him the same kind of peace as when he thought about the life of Christ and the life of the saints. And so for all of us here, or for those watching at home, we feel Christ's peace here with us as we celebrate this Mass, or when we listen to the Word of God, or the lives of the saints that we might hear about in other programs, perhaps. So we have that peace in our hearts, but then we go on our days, or maybe we turn to watching the news, and we hear about all that's going wrong in the world, or we see what's happening in the world. And it may, we feel like that peace is being taken away from us. It's hard to turn away from that channel, perhaps. We just get stuck watching over and over these same things. But we notice that although we may be addicted to watching it, it doesn't give us that same kind of peace that Christ brings us. Because Christ is the true King of Kings. He's able to bring peace into our lives. We heard in the responsorial psalm today about how Jesus is the King of Kings, because the kings of Tarshish and the Isles, the kings of Arabia and Saba, are coming to him bringing tribute. And he's not just the king over the governments, but he's the king of all creation, the king of the universe. Because as we see today, he performs a miracle, walking upon the waters, walking over the seas, showing that he has mastery over all of creation, and so that he is king of the universe, king of all creation. But he's not just king of great things, the big things, but he's king of each one of us as well. A king who offers peace to each one of our lives and to our hearts. Again, as we heard in the responsorial psalm, he shall rescue the poor when he cries out, and the afflicted when he has no one to help him. He shall have pity for the lowly and the poor, and the lives of the poor he shall save. We see this in the gospel as well. Jesus is concerned for each one of us, for the poor, for the needy. Right before this passage in the gospel, Jesus was with the crowd, with the multitude, and he had pity on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. His heart was moved for them. And then he saw they were hungry, and so he has the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes to feed them. And now even the disciples, they're caught up in the storms and the distress of the sea. But he comes out to them and he says, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." And so he comes offering his peace. And that's what Jesus brings. By his love, he casts out fear. He brings us his peace. Many of us maybe have many fears of isolation, fears of our health, fears of what we see in the world, fears for our children, our grandchildren, whatever it may be. But we know that Jesus comes, and he comes in his love to cast out all fear. Because he is king of all creation, king of the universe, but king of each one of our hearts as well. He listens to each one of us. And so we prepare ourselves now to receive him, whether in the Eucharist or through a spiritual act of communion. And we invite Jesus into our hearts to be king there, to remain there, to bring his love, to bring his peace, and to cast out all fear from our lives.